Well, hello and welcome again to our reading of the Greek New Testament, and we're reading the Gospel of Luke. We're up to chapter 6, verse 17. Kai katabas metauton este epitopu pedinou, kai oklus polos metheton autou, kai plethos polotu lau apopases tes Iudaias kai Jerusalem kai tes paraliu Turu kai Sidonos. And this particular pericope is in Matthew's Gospel, but it's not in Mark. Kai katabas, from aorist participle from katabino, having gone down with them, este he stood. Epitopu pedinou. Pedinos is an adjective here meaning flat or plain. So on a flat place, literally. Kai oklus polos, and a great crowd of his metheton, of his disciples. So he went down and he stood on this plain, and also a great crowd, understand, stood there of his disciples, and a great multitude of the people from all of Galilee and Jerusalem, and of Tyre and Sidon, that are paraliu. This is another adjective here meaning beside the sea. It's a good classical word because Tyre and Sidon are of course on the coastal towns. Hoi elthon akusai autou kai iathenai apoton noson auton. And they came, akusai, to hear him. Akuo takes genitive of person, which was in classical Greek, and it's doing that here. Kai iathenai apoton, apoton noson auton. They came to hear him and to be healed. This is the aorist passive infinitive from iamai. It's a contract alpha verb. To be healed from their diseases. To be healed from their diseases. Hoi enoklumenoi apo pneumaton akathaton etherapeuonto. And those who, now this is a present passive participle here from enokleo. It's an epsilon contract verb. Enokleo is to trouble or annoy somebody, to irritate them, and in the passive here it's just those being troubled by or troubled from here, unclean spirits, and they were healed. So those who were troubled from unclean spirits were healed, and it's imperfect, so were being healed. Kai pas ho oklos et seitun haptesthai autou hotidunamus parautu ex erketo kai iatopantas. And the whole crowd was seeking, from satio, imperfect. Haptesthai is the infinitive from haptomai, to touch, and it takes a partitive genitive. So to touch him, because dunamis, power, was going out parautu from him. Power was going out from him, kai iatai pantas. Now this is the imperfect here from iamai. It can't augment because it begins with a vowel. The ending is eto, so it's iota, alpha, and then epsilon, and the alpha and epsilon contract to give you a long A here. So this is the imperfect from iamai, to heal. So, and he began to heal them. And he was healing all of them. Now the next little section is mirrored to some extent in Matthew's Gospel. This roughly corresponds to the Beatitudes from Matthew 5. Notice the change we get from they to we in this as we look through this. Luke doesn't have that same long chapter of Beatitudes that you get in Matthew. It's more condensed here. but nonetheless it corresponds to that, and presumably this material comes from that Q document that scholars have suggested must have existed, which was the place where Luke and Matthew got common material. Kai autos ep aras tus ophthalmus autu es tus mathetas autu elegen. And he, this is Jesus, having lifted up from ap iro, his eyes, to his disciples. Interesting that Luke makes a distinction between the disciples and the rest of the crowd, as we saw in the earlier passage here. So to his disciples he began to say, Makarioi hoi ptokoi hoti humetera esti he basileia to theu. Blessed are the poor, because yours is the kingdom of God. And in Matthew's Gospel, we have theirs is the kingdom of God. But Luke personalizes it, because yours is the kingdom of God. Interesting variation from Matthew. Kai makarioi hoi panontes nun, hoti kortas theseste. Again, it's personalized it here. Blessed are those who are hungry now, because you will be satisfied. So we're going to take you as the subject of this participle. It's almost, blessed are you who are now hungry, because you will be satisfied. Makarioi hoi kleontes nun, hoti gelasiti. And blessed are you, the ones weeping now, because you will laugh. This is from gelao. Again, it's one of those alpha contract verbs that doesn't lengthen the alpha in the future and aorist tenses. So it's from gelao. Makario esti hotan misesosi humas hoi anthropoi kai hotan aphorisosi humas kai onadisosi kai ek balosi to anima humon hos poneron henika tu huiu tu anthropu. And you, again, everything's personalized here, you are blessed when men will hate you. This is men hate you. This is a aorist subjunctive here. When men hate you, and hotan, when, aphorisosin. This is from aphorisdo. The original meaning was to mark off with a horos, a boundary, or a boundary stone. And the word then comes to mean to exclude. So use boundary stones to mark off one part of the land from another, and the word comes to mean then to exclude or even excommunicate or refuse to have contact with. So when they exclude you, kai onadisosi, and they reproach you, and they cast you out, they cast out your name, hos poneron henika, as evil, henika tu huiu tu anthropu, on account of the Son of Man, koreti en ekene te hemera kai sketesity. And we get here we get subjunctives here rather than imperatives. So rejoice in that day. And now skirtacity, skirtao is the verb. It's an alpha contract verb. It means to skip or to gambol. It's often used of little lambs jumping about. So it's quite a poetic word here. So rejoice in that day and, well, what do we say? Skip about. I've forgotten what the modern translations do with this, but that's the classical meaning of this. Perhaps be excited. Idu ga homistos humon polus en to urano, for behold your reward is much in heaven. Katata autaga epoiun tois prophetais hoi pateras auton. Now we get this expression kata ta outa. literally for according to the same things. So it's idiomatic for something like, for in the same way did their fathers, epoion, well, literally do, we might say treat, they used to treat the prophets in exactly the same way, to paraphrase it slightly. Now, after the four blesseds, we have the word blessed mentioned 4 times earlier on in verses 20 to 21 and the beginning of 22, and now we get corresponding to these the 4 woes. Uai is onomatopoetic. It just means, it's just like expressions we have in English. It just means woe, and plain here is just has the meaning of but. It's quite a strong but. So, but woe to humin tois plusiois, woe to you who are wealthy, hoti apekati tan paraklesin humon. Now, echo in classical Greek means to be distant from and is often used impersonally. This is not the usual mean, but it's got a totally different meaning here. So this is a later meaning, a later development of the word. It must mean something like you have to the full. So in other words, you've used up, you've had all you're going to get. So you have had your consolation. And woe to you, hoi em peplesmenoi nun. This is from em pimplemi. This is the perfect passive participle here. So woe to you, those who have been filled now, filled in the sense of have your fill of food and so on. Hoti penacity, from penao, another one of these alpha contract which doesn't lengthen, because you will be hungry. And woe hoi gelontes nun, and woe to you now who are laughing. Hoti penthesity kai klausete, because you will, penthos is suffer or grieve, because you will grieve and you will weep. This is the future from Clio. If you're looking this one up, it's alpha iota, and you get a vowel gradation from I to ow here in the aorist and in the future, which we have here. And now fourth, woe, and woe whenever all men speak of you well. So woe to you when all men speak well of you. Katata auta ka ga epoion tois pseudo prophetois tais hoi paterus auton. We get the same expression. For their fathers treated or did in according to the same things, so in the same way, they treated the false prophets in the same way. Just to slightly paraphrase it. And that's the end of that little section. We continue on. This again mirrors what's in the Beatitudes in Matthew 5. But I say to you, the ones hearing, agapate tus ecthrus humon, love your enemies, kalos poieti tois visusin humas, and treat well. This is extended use of poio here. This is an adverb, so literally do well. So treat well, and with a dative here, those to those hating you. So literally do well to the ones hating you. So treat the ones hating you well. Eulogete tus kat aromenus humas, and bless those cursing you. This is from kat well, it'll be ara amai, I think here. And ara is a curse, and this is a verb formed from that. We get kat ra'amai, I think, from memory. It's an alpha contract verb. So bless those cursing you, prosukes there, and pray peritone ep ariadzonton humas. Now this is an interesting verb here. It's a classical word. It turns up in Herodotus, but it's not used anywhere in the Septuagint. And it's a noun formed from it's a verb formed from the noun epeireia. It's an abstract verb, which simply means spiteful treatment, but the etymology of that is unknown. And then they formed a verb here, epeireasdo, and here we've got the participle from that. So it means to threaten abusively, to mistreat, to treat spitefully. So pray on behalf of those who mistreat you or treat you spitefully. To tuktonti se epi ten siagona pareke kai ten alein. And here's this famous verse. To the one striking you, from tukto, dative singular participle here. So for the one striking you, pareke, provide, the one striking you, epitain siagona. This is the third declension noun. Siagone is the cheek. So the one striking you on the cheek, provide also ten ale, the other, that is the other cheek. Kai apot tu hieruntes su, and from the one taking from you, to himation, your himation's the outer garment. Kai ton kiton me koluses. Now koluo is to hinder, so it's something like do not hinder, understand, for him to take also your kiton, your undergarment. Panti aitunti se didu. An imperative here. So to everyone asking, you give. So give to whoever asks you. Kai apot tu hierontes tasa me apaite. And do not ask back your property, tasa, from the one taking it. Kai kathos thelate hinapoios in humin hoianthropoi poieti autois homoios. And just as you wish. Now we get this funny use of hina here, which is late usage. So it's often translated as something like that. And just as you wish that men might do to you, comma, poiete, imperative, do to them likewise. Kai e agapate tus agapontas humas, and if you love those loving you, poia humin charis esti, what grace is this to you? What gift or what grace is this to you? Kai ga hoi hamatoloi tus agapontas autus agaposi. For even the sinners love those loving them. Kai ga eon agathopoiete tus agathopuentes humas poia humin charis esti. Kai hoi hamatoloi to auto poiusin. And if you do good, you can see the roots here of agathos and poia. If you do good to those who do good to you, poia charis, what sort of grace is there for you? Even the sinners do to auto the same thing. You'll notice when you get autos with the article, it always means the same. So even the sinners do the same thing. Kai ean danise te parhon elpicity labain poia humin charis esti. And if this is from danisdo, which means to lend. If you use it in the middle, it means to borrow, but in the active, in this here, it just means to borrow. So if you borrow, to lend, I should say. If you lend Parhern, from those things, from, if you lend, from those whom you expect to take. So that's a little bit tricky there. So if you lend, in other words, if you lend money, understand, to those from whom you expect to get it back, to take it. Labain from lambano. Poia humin charis estin, what grace is that to you? Kai hamatolois danidzusi hina apot labos inta isa. For the sinners lend to sinners, hina, in order that apolabosin, they might get back ta isa, the equal things, so to get back the same amount. Well, in fact, you think they'd want it back with interest, but anyway. Plain agapati tus ecthrus humon, but love those hating you, and do good, and lend, an el pidzontes, ap el pidzontes, expecting nothing. So lend expecting nothing. Kai este homistos humon polis, and your reward will be great. Kai eseste huioi hupsistoi, and you will be sons of the Most High. Hoti autos krestos estin epitus akaristos kai ponerus. For he himself is krestos, is good. It also means useful. So he is of use, or he is good to the ungrateful and to evildoers. Gines there oik timones kathos kai hopate humon oik timon estin. Oik timon is merciful, and it's a third declension adjective. So be merciful, just as also your Father is oiktiron, merciful. So just be careful there, that's not a genitive, this is a third declension adjective. It's from that verb of oiktero, to pity, or to be merciful, to show mercy to. So that's the next little section of chapter 6.